Well, here's a short story. There are many stories told about through which merit was the Baal Shem Tov born. In other words, what merit did his parents have that were given that they gave birth to this child called the Baal Shem Tov? Now, who was the Baal Shem Tov? The Baal Shem Tov, he began the Chassidic movement in Judaism, which was preparing the world for Mashiach. That's the whole purpose of the Chassidic movement, is to bring Mashiach. And in Chabad, they have a story that's told that the Baal Shem Tov was on Rosh Hashanah, and that his consciousness left his body and went into the chamber of the Mashiach, and he said, "When are you going to come, Mashiach?" And he said, "I'm going to come when your well springs are spread out." The sentence in Mishlei, in Proverbs, when your well springs are spread out, the Torah is called water, and the source of the water is from the well. So this is the source of the Torah, the godliness in the Torah is spread out, and that's his Hasidic ideas. And some of the ideas, just in a short way, which you can't get from the Torah alone. And even to this day, there's a lot of people. Number one, that God is creating the world all the time. Number two, that God cares about every detail of the world. He directs every thing that happens, even food for a worm, whatever. Everything is being directed by God. Number three, God reacts to what we do. He listens to prayers. He helps. He's a Melech, Ozer, Moshiach, Mogen. He not only creates us, but he also helps us and protects us and cares about us. And he answers our prayers, and only he answers our prayers. It's only, and this refers to non-Jews also. It's only, and the only one that's fit to pray to is the one who's creating us. A little bit of gratitude. Come on, God's creating us. Another very basic principle of Chassidut Chabad is that everyone has to do tshuva. Everyone, even the greatest, highest tzaddik, has to come closer to the Creator. In order to come closer to the Creator, he has to leave behind some of his misconceptions about his own self. And on the other hand, that's the holiest person has to change himself and try to get holier. And on the other hand, even the most degraded, debauched person, he can come close to God by means of doing tshuva. Just ask forgiveness. In addition to that, the effect of the commandments that connects us to God in an infinite way, and the Torah connects us to God in even a deeper way and even more. And Torah and the commandments brings blessing into the world, which will be manifested by the Mashiach. So I'll tell you a short story, which probably everybody knows the story, but I'll tell you the story anyway. So the idea is to spread out these ideas of Chassidut, these ideas that I just told, to spread them out. But in order to do that, you have to bring a lot of ideas of Kabbalah, because Kabbalah talks about all these hidden worlds, that in these hidden worlds, that by understanding them, you value God even more. You value the Creator even more by understanding that God is not an angel. He creates the angels, but you know what the angels are. You start to understand, wow, angels, that's just a creation. Ooh, wow, that's something amazing. And the angels are like nothing. The angels, that's just in the world of Yetzirah. Then there's the world of Bria. You know what the world of Bria is? I don't know. The world of Bria, that's like what all the other nations of the world, they worship. That's just one of God's creations. That's not God. That's godliness. But that's godliness. And then the world of Atzilut, then the Tzimtzum, all these ideas that come to bring you to appreciate what God is. That's taught in Chassidut in a practical way. Okay. So the Maggid of Mezrich, the pupil of the Baal Shem Tov, he actively printed out these ideas and would distribute them. There were among the Hasidim, the followers of the Maggid of Mezrich, Hasidim that were against this. They said you should spread out these ideas, but only to people that are fit. One of those was Rabbi Pinchas of Koretz. These were tremendously holy people. Some of them had the power to raise the dead. They were just incredibly holy people. Nevertheless, he said, you shouldn't. One day they were walking down the street. There's different versions of the story. This is how I heard the story. They're walking down the street, and they saw a page of this Chassidut, a page of the Chassidut, laying in the gutter, in the street. And this Rabbi Pinchas, of course, turned to the Maggid of Mezrich, and he said, you see, this is the result of your spreading these ideas out to people that aren't fit. There's somebody took one of these pages of the holy Torah, and threw it into on the street. The holy Torah, the secrets of the Torah are laying in the gutter, all because of you. You're defacing the Torah. So the first Rebbe of Chabad, that he was the youngest of the pupils of the Maggid and Mezrich, he said, I want to give you a parable. A parable. Why this is not a bad thing. Holy ideas of the Torah laying in this, not a bad thing. I'll tell you. So once upon a time, there was a king. And this king was a great, glorious, admired, successful, beloved king. And he had a son. And as much as the people loved the king loved his son 10 times as much. But the son became sick. He became sick that the first father didn't think there was much to it, and he went and brought doctors, and it didn't help. And he got sicker and sicker, and he brought bigger doctors, didn't help. He brought professors, didn't help. He brought all sorts of magicians and sorcerers, and it didn't help. Nothing helped. The son got worse and worse. So one day there appeared some old wise man, and he said, Your Majesty, I heard your son is sick. I just by looking at him, I know what his disease is, and I know what the cure is. So the king said, forget about what the disease is. I don't want to know what's the cure. So he said, the cure is that the king has to take the diamond that's in the crown of the king and crush it up. As soon as he said those words, crush it up, the whole from the crowd came out this gasp. I'm making up a lot of this sort of stuff on the side. But anyway, getting out this gasp, he said the crown of the king. And then you have to crush it up. And then you have to put it into water. You have to mix it up in a special way. And then you have to get your son to drink it. But I see your son's situation is pretty severe. So it's a big doubt if any of it is going to go into his mouth. And if it does go into his mouth, it's a big doubt if he's going to swallow it, probably spit it up. But if he does manage a little bit to go into his mouth, and even a little drop of it, he swallows it, then he'll live. So the king said, go for it. So how are you going to crush up a diamond? He says, don't worry, I know how to do it. So he takes off the king's crown and he crushes up the diamond. And this whole thing is just like a bet. It's like a big doubt if it's going to work. He's risking everything because this diamond is like, that's the diadem or whatever it is of the whole country. People come, they see the king with this big, thing. It's going to be a crown with a little big hole in the top. Worth it. So he crushes it up and he mixes it up in this water. Exactly knows how to mix it up. And he starts trying to administer it to the king, son. And sure enough, just like he said, nothing goes in. King says, and a little couple of little drops, they go in, and he spits it out. He spits it out. But he keeps trying. The king's son keeps, he keeps rejecting it and spitting it out. But finally, after all this, as a little drop goes in, and the drop goes in, and the king's son comes back to life. And that's the parable. What's the parable? The king is God. The king's son is the Jewish people. The Jewish people are comatose. They're coming to the point where they don't feel God. And justly so, we're in exile. It's a terrible situation that we're in. And we're under the terrible rulers, and there's no holy temple. Jews are beginning to assimilate. The whole thing is going down the drain. The only way we can save it is the king has to take the crown. The crown is the Torah, and the diamond in the crown, that's the secrets of the Torah, Kabbalah, and you have to know how to grind it up properly, how to crush it, and to mix it, and that's the idea of Chassidut. And now you have to try to administer it, to get it to the Jewish people. But the Jewish people are in pretty bad state. So not too much is going to go into their mouth. And if it does go in other words, it goes into their ears that they hear it. And even if it does, they reject it, they don't understand it. But if a little tiny bit goes in, that'll save the Jewish people. He said that's what you saw in the street. That's from some of the potion of the king's crown that was rejected, that it didn't go in. But if a little bit does go in, then the Jewish people will realize what is special about the Jewish people, about how God loves us more intimately than we can possibly imagine, more than the angels that are excited about God and that are screaming out that we should be screaming out to the creator of the universe, but we can serve God in a better way. We can do the commandments, we can give charity, we can learn Torah, we can do things that the angels can't do. But we do it with this enthusiasm that we got from the special potion elixir from the diamond in the king's crown, and that's the teachings of Chassidut. And that's what's going to save all of the Jewish people, bring us back to Jewish consciousness. Have a good day with Mashiach. Now, God willing, tomorrow I'll tell you there's a follow-up to this story about how the previous Lubavitcher, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, he said maybe we should stop teaching us. We'll talk about that, God willing, tomorrow. Have a good day with Mashiach now. Hope to see you all tomorrow at 8:15.